All right, what's happening? This is going to be a deep dive into stress, sugar, and weight gain, the correlation between all of those things. So, buckle up. Okay, let's start with the pancreatic hormone insulin, which controls the amount of glucose circulating in the blood, which will now be called blood sugar. Insulin also controls the rate of which blood sugar is absorbed into the cells. Glucose is the body's primary source of fuel. However, too much or too little can wreak havoc on the metabolic function. Poor blood sugar regulation is the precursor to insulin resistance, and side effects include weight gain and symptoms of metabolic syndrome, which is very common. It is also a leading risk factor in developing diabetes, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, obesity, nerve distress, polycystic ovary disease, and infertility. When a person consumes sugary foods and drinks, it's often at the expense of nutrient-dense foods, and because that person will then not believe or act on the fact that excessive sugar intake is negatively impacting their health, this is how you end up rolling down a hill, so to speak, that will be hard to get back up on. If you are craving fizzy drinks, sweets, salty carbohydrates on a daily basis, this is signaling that your body is chronically stressed and nutritionally imbalanced. Just one can or one fizzy drink can contain 9 to 11 teaspoons of sugar. So if you drink this and your insulin is not functioning optimally, or you are already overweight, it is going to wreak havoc on every endocrine system in your body and roll you further down that hill. Insulin facilitates the storage and the integrity of proteins and fats. It's considered an anabolic hormone. Insulin resistance is a condition where the mechanism is not being turned off because cells are not signaling properly. They have lost their ability to sufficiently uptake glucose from the bloodstream. So when we consume sugar or foods that become glucose, our pancreas releases the hormone insulin to reduce the glucose or sugar in our blood. Insulin acts as a gatekeeper, so to speak, the gatekeeper of cells. The pancreas releases insulin to unlock the cell to allow the right amount of glucose in, which feeds the cell and gives us energy. It also allows the process of storing glucose by turning it into glycogen. So it is then stored in our muscles and liver to be released for more energy later on when we need it. Anything extra in the bloodstream after this process gets converted into fat. So when we consume too much sugar, this gate to our cell becomes blocked, rendering the release of insulin dysfunctional. Because the cells don't get what they need due to blockage, they communicate with the pancreas, telling it to release more insulin. And thus the vicious cycle begins, leading to insulin resistance. The pancreas, of course, will do what it's told by signaling. It will keep releasing insulin, making blood sugar levels skyrocket. So our blood will have too much sugar and our cells won't have enough. This blockage literally starves our cells, and this is why we crave sugar. It also makes our blood sugar levels much too high, which inhibits insulin from doing what it's intended to do, remove glucose from our blood. Another function of insulin is to allow amino acids or proteins into our cells, which convert to muscle protein. High blood sugar increases the amount of insulin but reduces its function. On the flip side, insulin stops fat burning. So when we have too much insulin in our bodies, we are not burning fat and we are not allowing the amino acids into our cells to convert into proteins. Insulin resistance equals bad. Insulin sensitivity equals good. So how do we manipulate insulin in our bodies, specifically to build muscle, improve our energy levels, and obviously live a better life metabolically? Obviously, cutting out refined sugar is the first step. Also, increasing your potassium intake by eating enough vegetables is also another step. Personally, I'm not a fan of vegetables myself, as I eat mostly animal-based. However, potassium is the key mineral that allows glucose to be stored as glycogen in the liver. So we need about 3,000 milligrams of potassium per day, and there are many sources, but leafy greens will be the highest source. Without enough potassium, this process cannot happen as the glycogen cannot bind to the liver for storage. Intermittent fasting is another way to manipulate insulin sensitivity. It's important to note that when you are fasting that the meals you do eat are high in fat or high in protein. So think obviously for your fats, fish oil, avocados, nuts, salmon, stuff like that. So that the energy we get from our food is prolonged and you're satiated for a long time. Exercise stimulates the growth hormone, which allows the amino acids, proteins we eat to convert to muscle protein. Normal insulin levels are needed for this process, and as I've made pretty clear already, by this point, sugar inhibits insulin's ability to do its job. The amount of sugar our bodies need for insulin to be normal is 1 teaspoon. When you consider that the average human body has roughly 1.5 gallons of blood, it's a bit startling to think that in order for our insulin levels to be normal, we only need 1 teaspoon of sugar for our entire body. The average person consumes 20 to 22 teaspoons of sugar per day. This is it's outrageous. Think about that. That is 22 times more sugar than we need. So, finishing up, let me recap on some action points with these 3 steps you can take going forwards. Step 1, cut your sugar intake way down and remove refined sugar almost completely from your diet. Step 2, be active and allow yourself proper recovery time. It is important to know, however, that cortisol, or the stress hormone, is released when we exercise, which increases insulin. So when we're training, we need to be particularly aware of what we're putting into our bodies afterwards. This is when the body will need some carbs. When the body exercises, it releases the insulin, converts the carbs into glucose, and allows them into our cells. So really, post-workout is the only time you should be eating any carbs at all if your main goal is fat or weight loss. Step 3, be hyper aware of what you're eating. Try to track your food and keep a log of some sort. In order to burn fat and gain muscle, you have to be in an overall healthy state. Our insulin levels need to be normal, not too high and not too low.